find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
Hello, future Sophie here, just popping in up top with a quick content warning for our second story, Katelyn's story. It involves mention of child death and sexual violence, so if that's something you don't want to hear, stick around for the first one, peace out for the second, and we'll see you next week. We love you. Enjoy the show.
What time is it? Let me check my watch. Oh, it's bone o'clock. In olden days, a glimpse of femur was only for morbid dreamers, but you're not alone. Bring anything bones. Two goofy gals with deathly interest go on a skeleton inquest in your headphones. Anything bones.
Hello and welcome to Anything Bones. I'm Sophie Schwartz.
I'm Katelyn Hart, and I'm coming to you live from a hot, steamy apartment in quarantine.
That's right. One of us is sick as hell, and not just in a cool way.
We're both sick as hell, but I am Katelyn, and I physically did get COVID. It's like day 5 of quarantine. So worst case, I'm halfway through. Best case, I've got 2 more days. So,
I feel so bad, but I'm happy that you felt well enough to do the show with me today.
Oh hell yeah! The good thing about podcasting is you can do it from home, and the good thing about COVID for me is that I have had 3 shots of Moderna, so this bitch was ready for anything. I did get sick, but I feel a lot better today, although I don't know that I sound better.
I mean, the sound of your melodious voice is always music to my ears, but I might be a little biased.
Oh.
But we do have a fun podcast announcement for you guys. It kind of pertains to the last episode of the podcast that we did with Sam. We now actually own the URL homes4turkeys.com. So if you go to homes4turkeys.com, thanks to the beautiful Sam Demboski, you will find our podcast. She bought it for us. She redirected it to our podcast website. And I think that everyone right now should go to homes4turkeys.com.
And that's the number 4, so get it right.
Yeah, because if you write out 4, we do not own that URL, so we cannot guarantee the content you'll find at the end of that rainbow.
No, absolutely not. But yeah, thank you to Sam. That is my favorite URL for anything. I'm so glad that it redirects to our website. It's just the greatest joy.
Well, like when you have a podcast, you dream of having a joke URL for your website. You hope and pray that it will happen organically. And for us, it did. And I feel so happy about it.
The podcast gods have smiled down upon us via Sam.
Oh, thank you, podcast gods. And thank you, Sam, who may be... Okay, here's a crazy thought, and I'm going to share it with you, and it's a secret, so don't tell anyone. But I think that Sam might be some sort of trickster god. Have we ever thought about that?
Like a poltergeist?
Yeah, because one time they did give us $69 as a joke.
That was like the start of the artist fund for Anything Bones.
Yeah,
I think we were all FaceTiming or Zooming or something, and we were like, we really need money to make this podcast. Does anyone want to donate 69 cents? And this bitch shells out $69 for a joke? Iconic.
And this all supports my trickster god theory, because Sam will go so far for the bit, commit 110%, and like the magic of a trickster god, it's always hilarious.
Oh yeah, 100%. It was nice to have her on a couple weeks ago, and it's nice to be back. We took a little break that we did plan. I did just happen to get COVID at the end of our break, so there you go.
Yeah, we actually truthfully took the time off to see the stage production Anastasia, which was a mixed bag, but
yeah.
I really enjoyed it. Longtime listeners of the show will know that Katelyn and I love the movie musical Anastasia, as well as the historical context around it and the many different women who pretended to be Anastasia, and the story of the Romanovs and our guy Rasputin.
Who is not in the fucking Broadway musical of Anastasia.
Not for one fucking second.
Not even mentioning him.
No.
At the beginning, there were a couple moments where Sophie and I were having a history orgasm.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning, at one point, the little brother fainted on in front of everybody. It was he was center stage and he faints. And we're like, oh my God, where's Rasputin to come to the aid of the youngest Romanov child? Nowhere to be found. The other moment where we clutched each other was when Anastasia had a diamond that had been sewn into her dress that she'd had the whole time. And she pulled it out in Act 2 and was like, hey, I've got this diamond. We can go to Paris with this money. And it was, yeah. So, and we know that the Romanovs, the women did sew jewels and diamonds and things into their dresses. So that was a moment of, we were like, oh my God, this is so cool. I can't believe we're here.
Yeah, but then the other part of me is they replaced Rasputin in the story with this censorship, this guy who was the head of some sort of censorship board who was looking for Anastasia, and his
dad had been on the firing squad too, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it just annoyed me because I was like, if you're going for the most historically accurate, you know who was also there? Rasputin.
Fucking Rasputin. Yeah, he doesn't need to have a talking bat and be flying around to be scary as fuck and be undead. He was scary in his own right, so he still could have been the villain and it would have been awesome.
I mean, he was a nasty, dirty bastard in real life.
Yeah, but he didn't have it out for Anastasia in real life. I think he liked them, and he really wanted to fuck their mom if they didn't. Fuck. Sorry.
I'm pretty sure they did fuck. I'm pretty sure that was
you think?
When Tsar Nicholas went off to the war front for a really long time, you think that they didn't bone?
I don't know. I have no opinion on it.
The man has a legendarily ginormous wiener.
Okay. And why wasn't that the villain in Anastasia? Okay.
Yes, okay. For this children's musical, why wasn't the big donged Rasputin the villain?
Oh my God. But yeah, it was fun to see live theater.
Yeah, that was refreshing.
I really don't think I spread COVID to anybody, which is really important.
No, we were masked to the max the entire time, which is why I don't have it.
But yeah, it was good, but also kind of disappointing in the way that nothing ever lives up to your childhood expectations. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the costumes were amazing.
Should we talk about some other bones?
Yes. I figured it was tangentially related. Rasputin's our guy.
I covered him in the Romanovs. So yeah, I was really into that show and I really wanted to be wowed by it. And I was a lot of the time, but then turns out I was also getting real sick at the same time. So,
you know,
it was a mixed bag.
Live theater is a double-edged sword. I'm always saying it, but let us return to Bones, our wheelhouse. And Katelyn, I am hoping that maybe you will come with me to World War II.
Oh, sure.
Do you think you could?
Yeah, let's go. I'll pack up a bag.
Awesome. So it's World War II, and the United States is developing their nuclear program. And one of the things that they are creating are these fissile cores, which are the core of the bomb, these giant nuclear bombs that we dropped 2 of on Japan. And they ended up making 3 of these cores.
Uh-oh.
And this core, of course, was intended, like the other cores before it, to be made into a nuclear weapon to be dropped on Japan. But Japan saw the insane amount of horror and violence that we inflicted upon them and surrendered. And so there was no need for this 3rd core. And what they decided to do with it was to do experiments with this core. And because they had it safely contained, they could do experiments on how to bring it as close as possible to a supercritical state. And these experiments led to 2 critical accidents that killed 2 different people.
Oh, God. Okay.
Katelyn, we are talking about the demon core.
Stop. It's not funny.
It's not funny, but it's called the demon core because it's called the demon core, and it should be found under a mountain, and you have to have answered several riddles about it to get there.
Yeah.
But
here we are.
So sources for my demon core research are Wikipedia, The New Yorker, ScienceAlert.com, The Atlantic, and the CDC.
Oh boy, her favorite.
You know it's bad when you gotta go to them.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about what is the demon core.
Did I see this on Buffy the Vampire Slayer or no?
Oh my god. If Buffy had this, those fights would be a lot shorter. So it's a sphere of plutonium that weighs about 14 pounds. Like I was said, it now is referred to as the demon core, but before it was referred to as Rufus.
They named the bomb Rufus?
They named the lump of plutonium inside of the bomb Rufus.
Okay, that really changes things for me. Okay, continue.
So this lump is filled with radioactivity. It's actually warm. If you were to touch it, it would be warm because it is so radioactive.
Wow. I don't want to touch that.
You shouldn't.
Okay.
So the first accident with this demon core actually happens less than a week after Japan surrenders during World War II, and only 2 days after the demon core was canceled to be a bomb. So 2 days later, they're like, all right, let's fuck with it.
Yeah, they're like, okay, we don't need this to kill Japanese people. Ugh,
en masse.
Guys.
Yeah.
So let's do experiments, because God, I hate these fuckers. I hate war.
Yeah, this is a story about people who are very confident in doing very stupid maneuvers. This is the whole moral of this, I'm going to say right up at the top, is follow safety procedures. If someone gives you some fucking safety procedures, go ahead and follow them. So we've got the demon core, and we are at the Los Alamos lab where these scientists are going to be conducting experiments with the core that will bring it to the threshold of becoming supercritical. And that is the point where a nuclear chain reaction would unleash a blast of fatal radiation.
So they're like edging with this bomb.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Because, like, the informal name for this, like, bomb edging that they're doing is called tickling the dragon's tail.
See, that's a mistake. You shouldn't do that in a fairy tale. And you shouldn't do that in real life.
The thing is that if you have to call it tickling the dragon's tail, you know you shouldn't be doing it. You just know you shouldn't be doing it. I don't call making a pizza for myself putting my hand in the oven to see if it will burn off. Like, that's in the name. It tells you not to be doing this.
Wow. They did not think this through.
Yeah, I wrote here, which is what you basically said, it's called tickling the dragon's tail, which every adventurer knows is a bad call.
Yeah, have you seen How to Train Your Dragon?
Have you seen anything with a dragon?
I know.
So, on the night of August 21st, 1945, physicist Harry Daglan goes back to the lab after dinner, and he's gonna have a fun time tickling the dragon's tail all by himself.
He's about to die, isn't he?
Well,
I'm good at listening to these stories anymore. Maybe it's the COVID, but I'm just like, and I know everything. Blah, 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 blah.
Well, if they appear on our podcast, they're probably going to beef it.
Okay, yeah.
But so he decides to do these experiments by himself. Maybe he had a stroke of inspiration. And it's just him and a security guard in this lab at the moment, which is not up to code with the safety protocols that they had established. The very little safety protocols that they had at the time, this was against those.
Sure. He shouldn't have been there.
So basically what he was doing is he was taking the core, which is like this, if you picture like a silver sphere inside like another bigger hemisphere. So it's like a flat top with like a little bit of a pimple sticking out in the middle. And what he was doing was placing bricks that are made of tungsten carbide, which reflects neutrons that are shed by the core back at it, which basically bring it closer to the supercritical state. And so he is basically like brick by brick, he's building up these walls that are meant to reflect the neutrons back at the core. And he's basically playing supercritical Jenga.
This is so, I mean, like, to what end, my guy? Like, okay, so I put 10 bricks on the pimple. Like, are you just gonna tell all your friends that? Or like, I just don't see what this contributes to science. You know what I mean?
Well, this is continuing the machine of war. Like, even though the war is over, what they've done is they are like, we have this super dangerous thing and we can either just straight up get rid of it, or we can use it to do experiments to see how better to control it, how better to use it to kill people, how deadly it is in general.
Yeah, I'm putting my own lens on it when I obviously shouldn't, because I wouldn't do this.
Yeah, you have to put your mind in the headset of a post-war scientist. And so basically what he's doing is while he's building his walls around this little sphere, he slips and he drops a brick on top of the demon core.
Oh God, here we go.
And of course, this triggers the demon core to become supercritical.
Yep.
And this triggers a flash of blue light and a wave of deadly heat that engulfs this poor motherfucker. This poor guy.
Burned to death. Ugh.
Well, he received a lethal dose of radiation in just these couple of seconds. And his hand was like burnt and blistered. And he eventually fell into a coma after weeks of like nausea and pain all over his body.
He lived through the initial thing.
And he died 25 days later.
No. Fuck. That is awful.
Yeah, the security guard lived, but he was also dosed with radiation.
Yeah, he was probably thrilled.
Yeah, that's when you sue everybody you can find.
Yeah, I hope he didn't have to work another goddamn day in his life.
Me too, if there's any justice in this world. So this happens, right? And everyone in the lab knows about this, right? And
yeah, everybody's like, God damn it, Jerry, or whatever that guy's name was.
Harry.
Was it really? Oh my God. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was thinking about Parks and Rec, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's a very Jerry thing to do.
Yeah.
But the man is dead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You're right.
Yeah, we're sorry. So less than a year later, May 21st, 1946, one of the colleagues of the guy that we just talked about Harry, is Louis Slotin, and he is basically doing almost the exact same fucking thing. Except he's using a dome, like a little dome that he's like putting over the top of it instead of playing Jenga around it with these bricks that are meant to reflect the radioactivity back at it and amp it up to a point of almost supercriticality. They're lowering this beryllium dome, which is a lot like the material, the tungsten carbide that the bricks were made out of, where it basically does the same thing. It reflects the neutrons. I keep thinking about Jimmy Neutron. The neutrons back at the core, again, pushing it towards criticality. And Slotin is very careful to ensure that the dome has like a little tamper, is what they're calling it, is that he has the dome like tipped up a little bit, like to let the radiation out a little bit. Like if you can imagine, he's holding it at kind of an angle over this little sphere and like letting it out the side. And you know what he's using to prop it up?
Like a pen or something?
A screwdriver.
Fuck! Dude!
This thing already killed a guy.
I'm like, you're a scientist. This already killed your friend. We don't need to know this information. Like, get a grip and figure something else out.
Yeah, when I was reading this, I understand that it is like less than a year between these incidents, right? So, like, in my mind, I'm like, build a thing for this purpose. Why are we using a screwdriver? Build a thing for this purpose. Like, I know that's like, you know, hindsight is 2020 and, you know, we're all the way up here in 2022, but you would think maybe they would maybe build something specifically for this purpose if it is this deadly.
Well, and if it's this important, but it like, to me, this just screams of like rogue scientists like trying to figure something out. I can't tell if this was like the higher ups were telling them to do this or not, because like you said, if this was that important, shouldn't they have specialized equipment for it? Like, what's going on?
I mean, I think these scientists were kind of doing the experiments with what they had. Like, I don't know how much funding these guys had, but I mean, military has big funding. These are military scientists. Anyway, I think you and I both know what happened next with the screwdriver.
I bet something terrible.
Well, it did slip. And
oh God.
It did drop the dome completely down onto the thing for a second.
Okay.
Which, as we said, when you are building these walls or having this dome over, the more coverage you have, the more of these neutrons that are bouncing off of it. So it pushed this thing to supercritical, like, very quickly. To just put this dome right on top of it like that with no, like, let out point. And we actually have a quote from one of the scientists who was in the room, and I would like to read that to you of what
please.
This moment was like.
So this wasn't in the dead of night by themselves. This was
there were 7 other people there.
Fuck.
So this is one of his colleagues, Rainier Schleiber, said, quote, "The blue flash was clearly visible in the room, although the room, was well illuminated from the windows and possibly the overhead lamps. The total duration of the flash could not have been more than a few tenths of a second. Slotin reacted very quickly in flipping the tamper piece off. The time was about 3 p.m. So basically what started happening is the dome went down, this thing started glowing, blasted out this light. People started screaming and freaking the fuck out because along with this light came a huge blast of heat as well. And the calculations put the total number of fission reactions at about 3 quadrillion, which is 1,000,000 times smaller than the first atomic bombs, but still was a deadly amount of radiation.
Yeah, I mean, an atomic bomb is a lot.
Yeah.
So even 1,000,000th of it is not great if you're standing next to it.
No.
Staring at a light.
No.
I bet their retinas were fucked.
Oh, yeah, all these people suffered greatly. But our guy, Slotin, who was right there up on it, they were, this makes me sad. Like, him and his colleagues were, like, drawing diagrams of, like, where everybody was, like, when it happened, like, while the ambulances are coming, and they're like, okay, like, who should go first? Like, what's going on? They're like, Slauson, get your ass in the ambulance. You are fucked. And so basically for the next couple of hours, he was vomiting. He was extremely nauseous. His left hand, the one that had been holding the screwdriver when this happened and it slipped out of his hand, it was numb and then it was tingly and then it became really, really painful. And scientists estimated that he had received more than 15,000 REM of low energy x-rays. And his whole body was dosed with around 2100 rems of neutrons, gamma rays, and X-rays, and 500 rem is fatal for humans. So he had 2100 rem of neutrons in his body, and 500 is fatal for humans.
Fuck.
So that's not good for our guy.
No.
Eventually, that hand that was holding the screwdriver turned like waxy and blue and had like large burns and blisters all over it. And they had to keep it like packed in ice because it like hurt so bad and was like
I just can't
up.
believe that they even survived the initial like blast of it. And then I'm just curious how long he lived.
He did not live too long. We'll talk a little bit about that. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about what happens when you're exposed to plutonium, like what happens to your body.
Yeah, they treat it so casually in Back to the Future.
It's really not casual. Those guys should have been wearing so much more protection and should have treated it way more seriously. So plutonium emits alpha particles, which is most dangerous when you inhale it, because when you inhale these particles, they lodge in the lung tissue, and the alpha particles can kill lung cells, which can basically lead to the scarring of your lungs, causing other lung disease and possibly cancer. And once the plutonium gets into your bloodstream, it affects your lungs and your kidneys. And if it travels even further, that's when it gets in your liver, spleen, and collects in your bones.
Ugh, fuck. I don't want plutonium anywhere near my bones.
No, you do not want your bones. And if you're lucky enough to survive an initial radiation, it's likely that you will have complications from it later in your life.
Definitely. That makes sense. That shouldn't be there.
Yeah. But fun fact about plutonium is that if you ingest it, it's not too bad because your stomach won't absorb it as good and you can poop it out.
Nice. Aww.
You can have a radioactive poopy. Anyway, so 5 days after the accident, Slotin's white blood cell count had dropped dramatically and his temperature and pulse were all over the place. And basically from this point on, he rapidly declined. And he suffered from nausea and abdominal pain. And he basically had internal radiation burns.
Ugh.
And by the 7th day, he was experiencing periods of what they call, quote, mental confusion. So I think that it was definitely affecting his mind, his brain. And by the 9th day, he had passed away, unfortunately.
Fuck, 9 days, though. That sucks.
Yeah, and he was 35.
Ugh, fuck. Wow.
His body was shipped back to Winnipeg, where he was from, and given back to his parents. From both of these incidents, one of the only things that resulted from it on this lab's end of the things, this lab that is the place where both of these incidents happened, is that they wrote a memo being like, hey, be more careful when you're handling the core, you guys. It's like, how about we don't handle the core, you guys?
Let's take the core away from these fucking people. They can't be trusted with it.
Yeah. The records that we have from this lab indicate that at the end of the summer of 1948, the demon core was actually melted down and recast into something else. So
probably something else shitty and harmful. Yeah,
no, it's definitely a weapon. I couldn't find anywhere what it was specifically, like if it was made into, another bomb, but, I'm not quite sure where exactly that this particular piece of plutonium is now. But some creepy stuff about these two incidents. Both took place on Tuesdays.
Like today.
Ooh. And both took place on the 21st of the month.
Ugh.
Both men passed away in the same hotel room. Or same hospital room.
I was going to say no.
No? Hospital room.
Okay, good. Not good, but I'm glad they didn't die in hotels.
No. So...
the same room. That's chilling.
Yeah. So there's become a lore around this sphere of plutonium that it was cursed, or that, it was retribution for what we did to Japan. And for that, I say there is no retribution great enough, I think, for killing all those people in the most horrible way possible.
Just for nothing.
Just for nothing, for war. The thing is that there is no curse here. I can say very definitively that this is human stupidity, that this is hubris, that this is people fucking around with forces that are beyond their control at that moment in time. And they knew it, because that guy who we had gotten the quote from about what the moment was like, Remmer Schleiber, he remembers the first words that Slotin said to him after the incident. He looked at him and said, quote, "Well, that does it." He knew. He knew from that fucking moment that he was fucked.
Shit. That sucks.
Well,
that does it. Oh, I'm going to say that with such a different tone now. When I feel like I say that a lot. Yep, that does it.
Well, it's there's nothing in the world to compare to that type of mistake. But have you ever done something where you're like, this is a little bit risky. I think that I can pull it off. And then you can't pull it off. And you're just like, well, fuck me.
That does it.
Well, that does it. That's a wrap on me.
That's a wrap on your story only.
It's a wrap on my story. Yeah, that is actually the wrap of my story. That was the accursed demon core.
Fuck. I had no idea that these scientists were so devious.
Well, that the scientists were devious, and to me, something like the demon core sounds like something that a supervillain would have, but everything about it, the fact that it glows when it kills you, the fact that it's warm to the touch, the fact that it's a sphere of metal that can kill you from far away, everything about it is terrifying and hilarious to me. This orb is so frightening and silly.
Yeah. Good job. Now it's time to ride that orb of plutonium off into the sky as we listen to an ad break.
I'll get my screwdriver.
Hey everyone, my name is Eddie, producer, legend, and host of My Crunchy podcast over on the Podmoth Media Network. If you're looking for something chaotic, somewhat messy, and very incomprehensible, then go stream My Crunchy podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So stop searching and start listening to all your new faves from the Podmoth Media Network team now.
Whoa! That's us floating back in on a giant ball of plutonium and landing softly on the ground and getting off of it. What a lovely ad that was we just flew through.
Yeah, it's so nice to hear something positive in between two stories of utter terror and sadness.
So you have something fun for us.
Of course I do. I found something. I had my jaw on the floor the whole time I was reading this one. Yeah, I'm just gonna get into it because this blew my mind. Have you... Actually, this is a dumb question because you haven't seen this movie. But for our listeners, I'll ask you, and you can't talk to me. Have you seen the Angelina Jolie movie Changeling? No? Yes? Wow.
We're talking about this?
Yeah, do you know of the movie Changeling?
I do.
Yeah. We're talking about the true crime case that inspired it.
Hell yes. Hell yes.
It is heavily based on the disappearance of a little boy named Walter Collins. And that's just part of the story, so I'm going to get right into it. So I saw Changeling probably in middle school or high school. I don't remember at this point, but it stuck with me because it's an upsetting movie. That one and The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, I was like, fuck, these movies are scary, but somehow right up my alley. I'm sad, but I am interested. What's going on?
Yeah, foreshadowing.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what's going on.
exactly. So I had seen this a while ago, but then when I came to this story when I was doing research, I was like, yeah, I got to talk about this on the pod. So I was watching BuzzFeed Unsolved again because it's good. You should check their episodes out on Hulu and YouTube, and they have a great episode about the disappearance of Walter Collins, which I'll put in the show notes. 2 articles from allthat'sinteresting.com. 1 article from, I shit you not, mamamia.com.
What?
I don't know.
What is Mamma Mia doing having anything to say about this?
I have no idea. And the last one was crimemuseum.org. So we go to March 10th, 1928 in Lincoln Heights, Los Angeles.
Oh.
Walter Collins was last seen around 5 o'clock by one of his neighbors at the corner of Pasadena Avenue and North Avenue 23. He is 9 years old at the time that his mom gives him some money to go to the movie theater, or the cinema, as they probably called it back then. The moving pictures.
Yeah, the moving picture show.
And unfortunately, I don't know if he ever makes it to the movie or not, because he disappears after this day. The Los Angeles Police Department is already kind of like bad before we even get to 1928. They don't have a very good reputation. There are some allegations of corruption, and they just don't seem to be doing their jobs very well.
Police not doing their jobs very well?
I know. And the poor baby police chief, James Davis, was under a lot of pressure to solve the case of Walter Collins' disappearance.
Oh,
that poor little boy, ickle baby boy.
That poor full-grown fucking man.
So Christine Collins is a single mother. Her ex-husband is in Folsom State Prison for robbery. And at first, I don't even know his name, actually. I don't know it. Sorry.
That important to the story.
Collins' father, Walter's dad. Let's call him Walter's dad.
Walter's papa.
Walter's papa. Walter's dad thought at the beginning that it could be former prison inmates that were had kidnapped his son to get back at him. Because I guess he worked at the cafeteria and he was like a snitch because of that. I don't know. But that doesn't end up going anywhere. I don't know what happens to the father. He drops off the face of the earth at this point, or he just stays in prison. I have no idea.
Yeah, I guess he just stays in prison thinking everything is about him.
Apparently, yeah. You probably think this song is about you, don't you?
You probably think this kidnapping's about you.
Oh, so there are reports of sightings of Walter all across the state of California. He's sighted in San Francisco, Oakland, Glendale. In Glendale, a gas station attendant apparently says that he was in the backseat of a car, quote, wrapped in newspaper from the neck down.
And you didn't do anything about that?
Apparently, oh yeah, there he is. There he goes. Bye-bye.
I mean, that blows my fucking mind. You saw a kid wrapped up in newspaper.
And yeah. I mean, he told the police about it apparently, but who knows how much later after it happened. So it takes 5 months. And the police have nothing. They have no leads. Everybody's pissed. And then in August of 1928, there is a breakthrough. A child in Illinois identifies himself as Walter Collins and turns himself into the police. Mm-hmm. He's here. He's found. He's in Illinois. Don't worry about it, Mom. So the police department is like, hell yeah, we solved the case. Everybody gets a pat on the back, right, boys?
No, you didn't fucking solve the case. A kid solved the case by being the kid.
So they're like, all right, we gotta get this kid back to Los Angeles. Christine, my lady, he's your kid. You gotta pay for him to come back. So she pays for this kid to come back to Los Angeles because apparently the cops couldn't do it, or who knows.
Oh yes, I'm so sure the LAPD was strapped for cash.
She's reunited with her son, and she says, quote, I do not think that this is my son.
Oh.
She's insistent on this fact. And I will post a side-by-side picture of these two boys so you can decide for yourself. She's like, no, this is not Walter. This is not my son. And the police are like, yes, it is. This woman's
No.
crazy.
No.
Why don't you take him home and try the boy out? That is a direct quote. Try the boy out.
Try the child out? Try the human
Just try
child
him out. Just try him out. You paid for him to come here. What? You have to take him home also.
I mean, well, when you pay for the child, you have to try it out. I mean, what are you going to do? Pay for the child and not use it? What the fuck? What the actual fuck, you guys?
It's gonna get so much worse. Just strap in.
I don't think I have a strong enough seatbelt for this one.
Sorry. So she is pleading with them. She's like, this is not my son. And then she gives up because they're not listening to her. They're not taking it seriously. So she takes him home. She's like, okay, what do I do? 3 weeks go by. And she's finally like, you guys, this is not my son. She goes back to the police. She brings dental records that show that her son had all these fillings that this boy does not have. And she also has a written statements, I believe, of people that knew Walter and were like, this is not Walter. Here's I don't know if it's an affidavit necessarily because it's not like a legal document, but she was trying to gather proof.
Yeah, here's a statement.
Multiple people. It's not just me saying that this isn't Walter. It's all these other people. And look at the fucking dental records.
Yeah, this is making me insane. The level of gaslighting that's going on here is it's systemic gaslighting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess now we're talking to Police Captain J.J. Jones. I don't know where the other fucking asshole went, but now we're dealing with this guy Jones.
Well, the other guy was a little baby and pooped in his pants.
This guy's gonna do about the same. He's gonna actually outdo the other one because he's like, I can't face this negative publicity. This bitch is gonna ruin us. I'm gonna have her committed to a psych ward under Code 12 internment, which is, quote, a code to commit someone who is deemed difficult or an inconvenience. Yeah, bitch, they put her in the mental facility.
Are you fucking kidding me? Oh my fucking god. This is the kind of story that makes me want to fucking time travel with a large bat and find this fucking dude and show him what a truly insane woman looks like.
History was not kind to these guys, and rightfully so, because they fucked up big time.
Yeah, I don't even know where this is going, but you've already done poorly.
I know. So she is kept there for 10 days. But by the time she's released, we've already figured out that this little boy is not Walter Collins, just like she fucking said.
Oh gee, I wonder who could have tipped them off. Who could have possibly told them that this was not the right kid? Only the person who it came out of.
The little boy's name is actually Arthur Hutchins Jr. He's 12.
So not 9.
No, he is not 9 years old. He's from Iowa and I guess was somehow in Illinois. I don't know how the Midwest works. I bet they're pretty close together.
I mean, everyone knows in the Midwest you can teleport to different states that have the same first letter as your state.
So it sounds like he didn't have a happy home life. And so he was running away, and he decides to pose as Walter Collins because he keeps getting recognized, quote unquote, as Walter Collins. People keep saying, aren't you that missing boy? And finally he's like, yep, I am.
I mean, I guess if everybody is like, are you that missing boy? After a while, you gotta shrug your shoulders and say, maybe I am that missing boy.
I mean, yeah, and it's hard because he is a 12-year-old, so...
Little boy who had a terrible home life.
One of my nephews is 12, so it's kind of hard for me to have too much ill will towards this little boy. It's more like the police and the person that took Walter that I have a problem with.
I don't have any ill will towards this little boy because he was probably in a situation that was dangerous to him. And he figured out a way to get out of it. He's a little boy. He doesn't understand consequences or context.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So he gets a lot of, I guess when he's on his way to Los Angeles or right before he goes to Los Angeles, he gets letters from his mom, Christine. And those letters, plus information that he gets from the cops that pick him up, are how he was able to give them details and pretend that he was kidnapped, basically.
Wow. Good job, boy.
This was, according to the Chicago Tribune, he was, I guess, interviewed later and talking about Christine. He said, quote, she was nice to me. And it's fun to be somebody you aren't. So this is a child.
She was nice to me.
Well, she wanted you to be her son. Of course she was nice to you. Like, it's all around bad situation.
It just sucks. It sucks for everybody.
So, of course, well, not of course, I guess, luckily, because this situation is a pile of garbage.
Yeah.
Christine is released from the psychiatric ward. And of course, she files a false imprisonment case against Los Angeles.
Hell yeah,
she
bitch.
wins.
Get 'em.
She wins, and J.J. Jones was ordered to pay about $10,000 to her, but he never paid her any money. So that went nowhere.
Jesus creeps. I hate this guy.
Yeah. Well, you're going to hate somebody else even worse, because eventually the police do finally figure out what happened to Walter, most likely. And unfortunately, he was most likely the victim of a serial killer.
What?
Yep. Have you heard of the Wineville chicken coop murders?
Oh, unfortunately, yes.
Yep. So these were the murders of Gordon Stewart Northcott. 3 names.
Ugh.
Why do murderers always have 3 names?
Because they want to pretend they're fancy.
He was a pile of shit that murdered little boys on his chicken farm near Los Angeles in this town of Wineville. So the police come to this conclusion, finally, I guess, because they start putting pieces together of other things that have been going on nearby. These 2 twin boys, Nelson and Lewis, have gone missing in Pomona in May 1928. And their parents get weird letters from them where they say they're going to Mexico, or they say they're going to stay missing as long as it takes to become famous, which is like, what?
Weird.
Yeah. There's also unfortunately, I don't know exactly when they find this, but there's a boy's body. They think he's Latino, and he's found without his head. Oh, in February. So this was before Walter went missing. So February 1928, they find the headless body of a Latino boy in La Puente. And what cracks the case open and what points them to Gordon Stewart Northcott is in September 1928, a woman in Canada goes to the U.S. consul and is like, there's something going on at my nephew's chicken farm in Wineville. And he's got my son, Sanford Clark, like there with him. So this woman, Winifred Clark, she's got 2 kids, Sanford, who's in California at the chicken farm, and then she's got a daughter, Jessie, who's 15, and the 15-year-old gets worried about her brother because she, hasn't heard from him in a while or something.
Yeah.
So she takes her ass to Wineville to go, from Canada. She's 15.
Oh my God.
And she goes to go check on her brother.
Yeah.
I know. She's like, fuck this. I'm going. I don't know what's going on. She stays a few days at the chicken farm, and she realizes that her uncle is definitely abusing her brother and something really bad is going on. And apparently Gordon, her uncle, even attacked her too. It doesn't really say how. Can't have been good.
I don't want to think about it.
No. So, investigators, go to the chicken farm, and Sanford tells them that he was kidnapped by his uncle, and he's also been physically and sexually abused by him. He also said that he was forced to watch the abuse and murders of a bunch of little boys, including Walter Collins, and sometimes he even had to participate in the murders. So he said that Northcott would abduct boys, assault them, and then when he was done with them, he would take them to the incubator room so that they could see chicks hatching, but then he would kill them with an axe.
Yeah.
Once they were dead, he would cover their bodies in quicklime. Yeah. Sorry, this is so dark. We're almost done.
Yeah, I just, there's nothing to be said except that it's the most horrible thing you can ever imagine to happen
No, it's not okay.
Child.
No, and for nothing. So Sanford says that they can find graves under the chicken coop, and that he says that the Winslow brothers and Walter Collins are down there. They do find the graves, but they only find pieces of bone because he had put quicklime over everything.
Mm-hmm.
They find axes and farm equipment with hair and blood on them, lots of bones all across the property. And they find a book inside the house that was checked out to one of those Winslow twins that I talked about a little bit. They also found other weird letters that the kids had written to their parents, probably under duress. There was also a whistle and Boy Scout badges at the house. So, ugh. but nothing that could directly be attributed to Walter Collins. So Sanford gets away. Sanford is the nephew, and the police do find him. But Gordon and his mother go on the run, but not for very long because they get arrested in British Columbia on September 20th, 1928. So this all happens pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
His mother it turns out, was like, may or may not have been in on most of the murders. It's really gross and sad.
Whoa.
Yeah. The police, in December 1928, the police take Gordon back to his ranch to try and, like, dig up, no pun intended, more information. And he verbally confesses to 5 murders, but then he only writes down a confession to 1 murder later that day. It's really weird. Also around that time, Gordon's mother confesses specifically to the murder of Walter Collins. But honestly, we'll never know who actually did anything to him because they never find any remains. But Sanford, his testimony is pretty compelling. Like, if he knew Walter, then it's pretty obvious that Walter was there. Sanford also said that his grandmother said that if they each hit the boy, they'd each be equally guilty, which is just disgusting. A disgusting thing to say to your grandson. And the mother, Sarah Louise Northcott, she actually does get sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Walter Collins. But Gordon's trial begins in January 1929, and I believe they only charge him with 3 murders, or maybe 1. It's kind of different depending on what sources you look at. Of course, he defends himself because he's a fucking weirdo.
They always do. That's how
they
you
always
know.
Think they're smarter than everybody, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna be such a good lawyer. It's like, no, dude, you probably would have been way better off if you hadn't even said anything.
Here's my fucking proposition. Like, trials are long, right? Like, if you get someone who, like, stands up and is like, I'm gonna defend myself, I think that's a shortcut to guilty.
Well, if it were Judge Sophie's court, that would definitely be the case.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, you're defending yourself? You're definitely guilty.
Yeah. So Northcott tries a bunch of different defense strategies, but in the end, he even had his mom testify for him, which didn't end up going over very well because her only, like, through line was that she'd do anything for her son. So it's like, well, then how do we know you're not lying right now?
Yeah, seriously.
Anyway, nothing works, luckily, because on February 8th, 1929, he was convicted for the first-degree murders of the Winslow brothers and one other victim. They didn't say his name in the source I looked at. He was sentenced to death and was hung on October 2nd, 1930. And shortly after his execution, Wineville actually decided, you know what? We have a terrible reputation because of what this fucker did in our town. We're going to change the name. So Wineville, California does not exist anymore. It is now Miraloma, which means view from the hill in Spanish.
That's strangely just more haunting. View from the hill?
Yeah. I don't know, but they thought it would sound fancier than Wineville, apparently. So just to wrap up here, I know this has been a doozy. Christine Collins never fully accepted that this guy Gordon murdered her son. She actually was only strengthened in her resolve because about 5 years after all this happened, one of the boys that Northcott was accused of killing, I guess, turned up saying that he had escaped the chicken coop.
Whoa.
Which there's not, I know, yeah. No more information about that, really, but it's just like, what? Did that happen?
I'm gonna need to know more about that gentleman and his journey.
I don't know anymore, I'm sorry. It was only in some sources.
Yeah.
It wasn't in all the sources, so I don't know if that actually happened or not. Long and short of it is, this poor woman, Christine Collins, died at the age of 75 after spending the rest of her life looking for her son, and she never found him. And I hope they're together now.
I hope so too.
That's my fucking story.
Well, that was fascinating.
Yeah,
I
know. It's a shitstorm.
I had heard about Changeling, and I had heard that it was based on a real case, but I didn't realize that case connected to the Wineville chicken coop murders.
Yep.
Or whatever they're fucking called. Because those are quite a famous...
Yeah. Yeah, and I did not fully go into those because it's just horrible.
It's not something you want to talk too much about.
No, there's certainly more information about those murders, and Gordon himself are available, but he's a piece of shit. Those boys didn't deserve to die. His mom's a piece of shit. The end.
The end, yeah. Well, I mean, I think if we can glean a theme from this episode, it might be
don't trust anybody.
Don't trust anybody, or men are stupid and reckless.
Men will have you committed because you were right.
Men will have you committed because you were right.
And they think you're a fucking nuisance because you're right?
Here's the thing. I would have been right there with that lady, because in the case of my story, I would be standing in the back going, what the fuck are you guys doing? Is that a fucking screwdriver? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Well, we really... there was humor, but we really had to dig for it.
Well, you know what? It is an archaeology podcast, so we do a lot of digging. And not so much in this episode, but for the comedy gold.
Oh, God.
Make sure to visit our website at homesforturkeys.com.
Yes. Yeah, that is our official website, okay? So go there now.
And it's the number 4. Make sure you check out our Instagram for pictures from these 2 stories and all the rest of the stories that we've done on the podcast. Check out the Podmoth Network and all of their wonderful shows.
Yeah, hell yeah. And get your vaccine, get your booster.
Yeah, keep your head on a swivel out there.
Keep your mask on.
And if you see a glowing sphere, you're going to want to head the other way as fast as humanly possible.
Leave it the fuck alone.
Here's the thing, if I can impart you with some wisdom. If you see a glowing orb, do not fuck with it.
Mm-hmm. Just mind your business.
Do not ponder it. Get out of there. Do not ponder. You know what, y'all? Do not ponder that orb.
You know what you should say if you see a glowing orb? Boom.
Voyage.
Okay, bye.
Piss off, orb.
Thanks for listening to Anything Bones. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Anything Bones Podcast, or email us at anythingbonespodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you to Nick Kruger for our spooky music and Stephen Vetteroff
At Chubby Scrubby on Twitter.
for our jazzy vocals, and thank you to Camilla Franklin
At Camilla Strader on Instagram.
for our beautiful bony artwork. Please rate, review, and subscribe.
You can have a radioactive poopy.
God damn it, Jerry.